To the Supreme God, to the great divine Father and the great divine Mother, thank you for your priceless blessings, for your divine light, divine love, divine power, divine healing, guidance, mercy, help, and protection. Thank you. For abundance and prosperity, also, thank you. To our great spiritual teacher, to all the great spiritual teachers, to all the great gods and goddesses, to all the great ones, especially to the Neem Karoli Baba, also known as Maharaj and to all his great disciples, we extremely humbly thank you for your great blessings. We are infinitely grateful to you for guiding us on the spiritual path, for helping us connect to our higher soul and to our divine spark. Thank you for shining the light so bright in us that all the ignorance is completely washed away in that moment. We thank you, we thank you, we thank you, we thank you. Thank you. All right, let's go forward. Miracle of love. Spirit till here. Animals cure themselves, right? We saw the cat incident last time. In Lucknow, a woman suffering from high blood pressure called her husband at the office and she said she was feeling giddy and asked him to come home as she couldn't reach a doctor. When he got there, she was still unable to reach a doctor. They were wondering what to do. When the telephone rang, it was Maharaj calling from Agra. He said, "You are worried about your wife's high blood pressure? Don't worry, nothing is wrong with her. Give her a glass of water." That's fancy. Imagine he calling your house saying, "Oh, this one's a problem. Don't worry, everything is fine." One morning at 4 a.m., when Maharajji was staying at my house, he said, "Come, let's go." I said, "Maharajji, I'll get my car and take you." But he said, "No, I'll walk." So I got my sandals. Maharajji went barefoot. I don't know where we were going, but I always entrusted myself to Maharajji because even if he said he didn't know where a place was, he knew. Often Maharajji would ask, "Do you know where such and such is?" I'd say no, and then he'd take us there. So I surrendered myself to him. We went to a slum. Maharajji came to a shack with only a window like door, which he pushed open and looked inside. There, a young boy of about 12 was lying on a cot, very sick. Maharaji said to the boy, "Get up, you aren't sick." As soon as the boy was able to get up and lean against the wall, Maharaji lay on the bed. At this point, the old blind grandmother who was taking care of the boy awakened and asked, "Who is there?" I answered, "A Mahatma, a great soul has come." Maharaji asked her, "Has he been feverish with chills for 2 weeks?" She said, "Yes." The boy probably had typhoid fever. Then Ma was uncomfortable because she had nothing to offer Maharajji. Maharajji saw this and spied an old can with water in it. "Ma, have you got some pani? Water? I'm very thirsty." She was happy to have the opportunity at least to give water. He drank deeply and then offered the container to me. But he knew I would never drink from it, and I said no. We left then, and the boy recovered. Mysterious, no? I wonder how these things work. There is a very interesting thing which I'm going to tell you today. I don't want this to be on the recording though. I'll let this be off the recording, that's okay. Let's continue. I'm pointing you to the book, by the way. I'm in a hope कि आप लोग वो वाली book को पढ़ोगे and you will understand what has been talked about. I think chapter 6 है या chapter 5 है you have chapter 6 है. Please read that and you will learn so much from it about what we discussed. And hopefully with that will come insights on how to go about developing it also. Ramdas gave a talk in Ohio in 1972 or 1973. A boy who attended the lecture that night got on the first plane the next morning, flew from Cleveland, Ohio to New York, to London, to New Delhi, where he got in a taxi, rode up to Kenchi. Less than 36 hours earlier, he had heard Ramdas talking about Maharajji. He walked into the ashram. He had taken off his shirt since it was so hot, and I could see that on his chest he had a bad rash. I welcomed him and asked him where he had come from, and he told me his story. Then I asked him why he didn't treated his rash. He explained that all the medical authorities had told him it was incurable. He tried infections and salves, and nothing had worked. I said that it was silly. It was just tinea corpus, which is really very easy to cure. I said that in fact Dwarka was going to Nainital, Dwarka somebody else probably, and he could get the sulfur tar to cure it and could bring it back that night. Then in a few days the rash would be gone. And he said to me, I heard Ramdas just 2 days ago, and now I've met Dr. America, Maharajji's nickname for me. And he said to me, I heard Ramdas just 2 days ago, and now I've met Dr. America, Maharajji's nickname for me. And I'm here in Maharajji's ashram. Anything you say. His eyes were big, as big as saucers. Dwarka brought back the sulfur tar. I showed the boy how to use it and told him that rash would be cured in just a few days. He agreed to use it and said he was on his way to Badrinath that day for a week. And he went off to the chai stall. I got to thinking that it had been a long time since I'd practiced medicine and I was a bit rusty. I went to where I was staying and checked my medical books about this disease that I had just diagnosed. I realized that I had diagnosed the wrong disease. The treatment I had given him was absolutely useless, so I raced down the chai stall just in time to get to see him on the bus and be gone. I felt very bad by misdiagnosing his disease. Not only I had failed as a Maharaji's representative, but I had sent the boy off with a useless medicine. When he came back, he was going to think that all the people around Maharaji were fools and incompetents. The week that he was gone was just awful for me. I had done something terrible. After the week passed, he came back. I saw him from across the ashram and ran out to him and said, I'm sorry. He said, Sorry? Look. He opened his shirt and the chest was completely healed. Not even a scar. It was all gone. I didn't understand, but I knew that it wasn't the medicine that I had given him. I went to the window of Maharaji's room. We called the office and I said, Maharaji, thank you. You cured him. He said, Sab Ishwar hai. It's all God. Wow. Wow. A woman devotee was sick from eating too many pickles. She loved them but had a bad stomach and couldn't digest them. So when she'd eaten a mango chutney, the next morning her stomach was bad. Her husband told Maharaji that his wife was sick. So Maharaji came running with something wrapped in a piece of paper. We all thought that he had brought some secret herb or ancient remedy. Maharaji opened up the packet and handed the contents to her, a cellophane wrapped table of gelusil tablet. Cellophane wrapped tablet Gelusil I think is antacid, no? Oh wow. What practicality. I discovered that I had diabetes and wasn't supposed to eat anything spicy, starchy, greasy, or sweet. Right after that, I went to Kenshi for the first time and was served a big plate of puris cooked in grease, some halwa, and some spicy potatoes. All precisely, all precisely the things I shouldn't eat. The doctor had told me that if I ate such things, I could get very, very ill. I thought about what the doctor had said and looked over at Maharajji, who was twinkling. I was trying to decide whether to have faith in the doctor or faith in Maharajji. At the time, I didn't even know if he was my guru. It was my first day on the job as Maharajji's devotee. I finally decided to eat the food. In fact, I was so hungry, I ate two big plates of it. Every day thereafter, I would come and stuff myself. After a few weeks, I went to Nainital and had my blood sugar level tested. It was down to borderline low. The doctor said, I don't understand how this could have gotten so low so quickly. This doesn't make sense. I said, well, I think I know what happened. Wow, so impressive. My mother was ill. Many doctors had seen her and had said that she was skeptic and must go to the hospital. Septic, not skeptic, septic, like later stage of infection. My mother, who was very orthodox, did not want to go. I wrote to Maharajji and he asked me to take her to a homeopath whose name he gave me. My mother was cured. However, the old homeopath, who had never met Maharajji, said, so many are sent to me by this Maharajji, and no matter what medicine I give them, they are cured. Even when the disease is chronic. I don't know how it's done. Wow. Wow. One time I was staying at Kenchi. My wife came for Maharajji's darshan, though I didn't know how she had come. In those days, she was feeling great pain in her heart. Wife, yeah, heart. Whenever she would go up or down the stairs, her heart would start palpitating. She would come to me weeping, thinking she was about to die. But putting my faith in Maharajji's power, I had no worries about her and never spoke of this to Maharajji. This day she came to Maharajji herself and told him. Immediately Maharajji called out, where is he? Call him. I came and he said, what? She's ill and you don't care? He went on talking like this. I didn't reply because I knew that whatever you are thinking, he knows and he replies to your thoughts as if you had spoken them. You think and he talks. I was thinking, why should I do anything? It is all in his hands. He replied out loud, no, there's a doctor. Go to Agra. He is a heart specialist. He is a great disciple. See, heart specialist, great disciple. This makes perfect sense actually. Then Maharajji turned to one of the mas standing by and said, tell him how I sent your relative to him. This doctor is a great saint. She said, when I showed the doctor the letter that Maharajji had sent us, he came running to treat my relative at the house. I said, and what happened? Well, in only 2 or 3 days, she was all right. Just see, Maharaji exclaimed to me. He is my great disciple. You go. Tomorrow you leave this place. Jao, go. If you need money, I'll give it to you. You must go. I didn't say anything. I just thought in my heart, well, Maharaji, you are so great. I have no need of going there. You are God. You can cure her. He immediately replied to my thoughts, no, no, you must go. Badmash, this is my order. I kept mum. He said, don't you know the doctor is a great saint? The moment she has his darshan, she will be all right. You see, you see his grace. You go to him. There will be no need of medicine. You see him. She will be all right. You go. Tomorrow you will have to go. Don't deny it. I had been thinking that I would not go. What? You don't obey my orders? Obey my orders. You're very wicked. You have to go. Well, I was thinking it is a great trouble to me, but he says I have to go, and so I must go. The next day, I thought he would direct me to go, but he didn't say anything about it. He said, "Well, come here. Sit beside me." How many people are coming to the temple? Give them prasad. Give them whatever they need. But he didn't say anything about going to Agra. From that day, even till now, 8 years, my wife had no pain. Wow. ऐसा हीलर बनने का है पता है In his earlier years, in some of the villages on the plains of India, Maharaj became well known for his curing of insane people. In those days, many such people would be brought in chains to Maharaj to be helped in the later years. He would do much less of this and often had such people taken to a temple known as Balaji Hanuman. See, some people would be brought in chains, by the way, insane people, right? And in later years, he would do much less of this and often had such people taken to temple known as Balaji Hanuman. Yet still, with a word or a glance or a pointing of the finger, he could straighten that which in the mind was crooked. Wow, wow. An Indian man, by the way, I hope you understand this, right? The way the temple mechanism would work, this is my guess, by the way, is that I don't know exactly how a temple mechanism works, by the way, but my understanding is a specific temple would have a specific kind of energy which the great teacher would have consecrated for a specific purpose. Also, extending the logic would, for example, there are some temples in which the wishes are granted. There are some temples in which you can get rid of, like, people with psychological problems usually go. So, my understanding is that there is some energetic structure and a deity that oversees the whole mechanism by which some specific energies are probably passed down which can treat the chakras. ये सब प्रॉब्लम्स होती हैं वो चक्रास में may actually manifest होती हैं. So the chakras can be treated in some specific way by doing some specific invocations which the great teacher would have dictated, right? So there are some places which are very suited for meditation. Some people go there to meditate, but वहाँ पे जाके you may not be granted a wish maybe, but you may have a very good experience of meditation, depending on the kind of place there are. I guess, right? So let's go forward. An Indian man had brought his widowed mother, who had been emotionally and physically destitute since her husband's death. She had been a devotee of Maharajji for many years, but it seemed she saw him only rarely. So her son brought her to Maharajji, hoping that this would help her. When Maharajji came out, I was troubled to see that the man and his mother were standing way in the back, and all the area near Maharajji was taken up by the young Westerners. I got up the nerve to be a busybody and asked people to move aside so that these people could come forward. People did move instantly. Then Maharaji took the window to the small room where she stayed with him for some time. She came out a different person, really radiant. I was impressed by that, and her son and granddaughter were very moved too. Wow, this is beautiful experience. Let's go forward. One of the Westerners became quite maniac. He stopped sleeping and began walking through the town naked, stealing things, and acting irrational in many ways. Finally, he took off in a taxi with only a shawl wrapped around himself to go see Maharajji at a temple and some 200 miles distant. When he arrived, he entered the temple and walked towards Maharajji. As he approached, Maharajji held up his index finger, and the man later reported that he immediately felt it was as if the incredible high energy with which his body had been charged for days, giving him the feeling that he had supernatural powers, was drained out of him instantaneously. He recalls being angry with Maharajji for taking the energy from him. Now, it's a possibility. I don't know exactly, but this is a possibility that there may be the energy is probably called the Kundalini energy. I'm guessing this. I don't know for sure, but it sounds like that. With that being said, you can understand that the Kundalini energy, for example, is something which gives you a feeling of having supernatural ability or powers, right? All of us already know this by now. At least to those of you who are spiritual path, you probably have an understanding of this. Now, when the Kundalini energy is running into the system properly, you will have the experience of being very powerful, being very strong, being able to see and do different things in different realms, right? Something like that. So, but then it also, if it's not done properly, the process is not, if it's not done properly, you will have experiences of not being grounded to the real life. Like some of the Babas, not everybody, some of the Babas are not grounded enough to care about what is happening near them or around them. Um, Whereas we know many great masters are the ones that are very well grounded. They take care of the people around them and so and so and so, right? This is important to know as a distinction because the more the higher you go, the more grounded you also need to be. Right? And this is an example where the Kundalini might have raised because of some practice or somebody would have given him some Shaktipat and things like that. Then the great teacher sort of did something and you know the energy was brought down to probably manageable level, I think. Many years ago in Neem Karori village, by the way, I'm sure everybody knows कि यहाँ पे उन्होंने वो बनवाया था क्या बोलते हैं the railway station got made. Remember when he was taken down from the train and he was like, you know what, I'm not going to move from here, and then he stopped the train also, by the way. Remember, right? Everybody remember this, right? Many years ago in Neeb Karori village, crazy men were sometimes brought to Maharajji bound in chains. Maharajji used to say, free them and keep them near Hanumanji. He would take a small bamboo stick and proceed to hit them on their heads. Then he would ask, are you all right? They would say yes. Then Maharajji would ask them to do some work, saying something like this: bring a stick of Rambans, cactus plant. When they would bring it, he'd say, now it's all right. They were allowed to stay for a day or two, and then he would ask the people who brought them to take them back home. Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Ram Bandha, that's a new word which I've come across. Many years ago, a Mohammedan lived behind the place where Maharajji was staying. They loved each other very much. One day, two crazy men were brought there, and Maharajji said to the Mohammedan, you make one of them all right, and I will make the other one all right. The one who was with Maharajji became all right within a short time, but the Muslim took some time and his man was still not all right. The devotees were sitting there were watching. Maharaji called the other crazy man over to him and hit him gently on his head, and then he too was perfectly all right. But Maharaji said, oh, the Mohammedan did it first. I was with Maharaji when he went to the sanitarium to visit the principal's younger brother, who had gone insane. He was brought into the room in chains, and his unfocused eyes were rolling around in his head. Maharaji stood in front of him talking to him. Suddenly, the man fell to the ground at Maharaji's feet and was perfectly sane. Wow! The man was able to answer all the questions. Later, he was released, although he wasn't to be his last bout with mental illness. Matlab, he basically had more bouts of mental illnesses, but he was sufficiently cured by that time. So, the great teachers have many ways, many mechanisms to cure people. Some of those ways, some of those mechanisms involve working or by displacing or changing some of the karma. That's one of the mechanisms. Other mechanisms have to, my understanding is to do with healing of chakras directly. Third mechanism, I think, is to heal or work with the soul directly. There are many possible mechanisms which they employ to get some of these um, things healings manifested. Once a Westerner devotee stood before Maharajji in a rage of defiance. He was drug intoxicated and came to believe that he himself was Jesus Christ and that Maharajji needed to repent. Before many other devotees there, this fellow shouted his defiance. Maharajji silently engaged the fellow's gaze for a few moments. within a look of openness and compassion. With a look of openness and compassion, the man still continued his tried. So Maharaji nodded his head and then told some devotees to throw him out. Even after he was outside, Maharaji sent more devotees out to be sure that he had gotten on the bus and left town. Later, when asked how he had felt during this time, the man said he felt engulfed with Maharaji's love and was especially touched by that he would send people out to him aboard the bus. Wow, wow. Some of the great teachers, they can transmit the energy of love by the power of eyes. You have to understand that eyes are the windows of the soul and the windows to the soul, right? At least our spiritual teacher says this, which means when you can look at somebody's eyes with deep compassion, you can sense if you're capable, I would say, the divinity in the other person. Just give me one moment, yeah? Somebody's at the door. All right. So I was saying that there are so the eyes are the windows of the soul and the windows to the soul, right? Which also means that once you get to a certain level of development, you can transmit the love of your higher soul through the eyes to the person who's looking at you. It may be, and the person should be receptive also, and love can just flow. This is why sometimes when we talk about saints, we say that his eyes were so filled with love, not just because they everyone's eyes are filled with love, and not in that sense, but like the saint is consciously transmitting tremendous amount of love when he's looking at you in your eye. This is why the great saints say, like our spiritual teacher would say when he would be teaching the classes, ki, look at me, don't write down, look at me. He says, at least from his understanding, the teaching is transmitted soul to soul via the eyes. Interesting, right? How do animals communicate? Now, this is a very primitive form of communication, but it still probably works through the eyes. They understand each other through the eyes better. Interesting. The lower form of animals don't really have a lot of words and phrases. They just communicate via the eyes. They understand each other by the eyes. That's very beautiful. Let's go forward. Maharaji did not heal all who came to him with illness or who prayed to be healed. Why some were healed and others were not was known only to him. Sometimes he would apparently lessen the illness but leave the individual with some of the suffering. His comments at these times suggest that Maharaj's healing act were intimately related to the karma of the individual. That often it was necessary for the person to suffer part or perhaps all of the pain of the illness. While most people do not want to suffer, Maharajji now and then reminded his devotees that suffering brings us closer to God. Wow. By the way, suffering brings us closer to God is also said by, what's her name? Mother Teresa. I just want to search before, I just want to make sure. Suffering brings us closer to God. Um, Bible says the exact same thing. Romans 8:17 says, "And if children, then heirs, heirs of God, and joint heirs with Christ, if so be that we suffer with him, that we may also be glorified together." So, uh, Mother Teresa, I'm sure, professed this. Actually, she talked about it so much that it is said, I'm not sure, it is said that she would sometimes, in some cases, refuse to give painkillers. You know, this has been spoken about. I'm not sure how true it is, but it is spoken that, she would say that if you suffer some more, you'll be brought closer to God. Again, it's her personal point of view. I have no personal viewpoint about it, but let's go forward. So Maharaji says the exact same thing, that Maharaji now and then reminded his devotees that suffering brings us closer to God. So that's why he would heal some people, he would not heal some people, he would partially heal some people, right? When my daughter was born, she was very sickly. I took her to an allopath and to an Ayurved, doctor of herbal medicine, but no one could help. I took her to an astrologer who said she has three planets indicating death. If she lives past 2.5, then bring her to me for her chart. Now it is useless. Then I brought her to Maharajji and asked his help. Maharajji just bent his head down on his arm and hid his face for some time. For about 5 minutes he concentrated. Then he picked up his head again. Don't worry, she'll be all right. After that darshan, my daughter caught pneumonia again and again, but she lived. She's now 6 years old. I don't worry about her. What comes now is karma, and we must deal with it. Beautiful, very beautiful. One of Maharajji's devotees was seriously poisoned. He was suffering gravely, and no one expected him to survive. Maharajji said, "You have to be satisfied with that little bit of suffering. You have to take on some of it." In other words, his suffering would have been worse but for Maharajji's grace. But indeed, he survived. There are, for example, I'll give you some examples also. There is a friend of mine, and she and her parents, they are at the ashram of the great Ma Amritanandamayi. The father is not doing very well for past 3 or 4 years, and this is very interesting, by the way. So whatever they do, they take the permission of Amma before doing it, right? And so this lady, she went to Amma asking, "Ki, can I take pranic healing for my father?" And I think Amma said yes a few times, every time she's gone there. And so I've been healing her father, and the father's not really getting better. I've been healing the father for quite a few months now. And somehow I think her daughter says ki the Amma knows the what and the why and the how of the ailment, and that's why she's agreed, for so and so things. And sometimes it makes me also wonder what kind of understanding do they actually have. It makes one wonder, right? What kind of understanding do they actually have, which helps them decide or what to do, what not to do, or how to look at a certain thing. you know I sometimes really wonder at the kind of things that they can perceive, which we probably can't. My elder sister has always been very sickly with various modalities, sorry, with various maladies. Maharaji told her that it couldn't be helped, that she somehow must work off past samskaras, karma. He told her to keep her mind always in the devotional thoughts or she would lose everything. Hmm. Our spiritual teacher, Master Choksoi, also writes in the book, he says in rare cases or very less number of cases where the ailment is karmic, the healing Like the patient may not get healed. Like no matter how much the healer will try or put in the efforts, the outcome of the results either may not last long or may not actually get healed at all, right? So there are many possibilities of this type also, but not like I have also noticed that sometimes I should really say it like this, but anyways, let's go forward. Maharaji asked an Indian girl 4 times, "Do you like sorrow or joy?" Each time the girl answered, "I've never known joy, Maharaji, only sorrow." Finally, Maharaji said, "I love sorrow. It brings me closer to God." Hmm. Okay. Hmm. In the bad times of your life, you really start to look at God for help, insights, and clarity, right? Like you start asking the right questions when things are not all right. And the right questions are like proper locks. I don't think life is personally my viewpoint is it's not about finding the right key. You have to find the right locks first. That can only come when you ask the right questions over and over again. Right questions, right questions, right questions, and right questions are not lying. You really spend time in asking the right questions. So once you have the right question, then the answers usually follow. Something like that. But in times when you're unhappy, when you're sad, when life is not giving you the appropriate flavors that you would like to experience, then the right questions usually start to show up in mind. Those are very important also. Like a very important question is why me? This brings up a lot of perspectives. Okay, I have a tendency to compare, blah blah, karma. Sink in after that. Not in the good times usually. Anyways, let's go forward. I got a very bad arthritic pain for the first time on a Saturday. By Sunday, after Maharajji had departed for Agra, the pain had stopped. In the winter, it came back again very intensely, but I didn't do anything for it. I want to keep the pain to remind me of that day. It was the last darshan I had of Maharajji. Interesting, huh? Very interesting. You get wisdom from suffering. You are alone with God when you are sick, in the cremation ground or hospital. You call on God when you suffer. Again, for reasons known only to Maharajji, sometimes he would seem to bargain with death and push it away from one of his devotees, while at other times he would not intercede and the devotee would die. Because Maharajji knew the time of each person's death, but he hated to be the bearer of bad news. He would often be absent at the time when one of his devotees must die. In some cases, when pressed, he gave a subtle clue, but often it was merely his absence that was a clue for the devotees who had come to know his ways. Once a neighbor lady came to my wife and she said he and she was going for the darshan of another local Baba. She asked my wife to accompany her. So my wife went along. The neighbor showed her hand to the Baba as he was considered an expert in palmistry, astrology, and other such things. But the Baba said, I don't want to see your hand. I want to see her hand, my wife's hand. She didn't want to show it, but he insisted and he told her that she would die in 6 months. My wife told this to Maharajji, who immediately exclaimed, Sab galat, it's all wrong. Why did that Baba say that? Will you not die? A time will not a time will not come when you will die. Everybody will die. Why didn't you say to him, what will you not die? Are you immortal? He will also die. Everybody will die. Why does he say such things? It's very bad that he says such things. Wicked. Then Maharaji narrated another story about a saint. I was there to hear it. Well, there was a saint. A woman came to see him. Her husband had just died. She bowed to his lotus feet, and he gave her his blessing and told her that she would have 5 sons. She said, But Maharaj, I have come to you because my husband has just died. How will I have five sons? The saint replied, I have told you that you will have five sons, and I will keep my word. And her husband came back to life. Then Maharaji said, and I will do the same thing. Since I have given my word, I will complete it, and you will not die. You will live for 75 years. Don't be worried. That was 80 years ago. She's still alive. Wow. Wow. Maharajji was walking by a place where a palm reader was working. And the palm reader, in reading the palm of one of the Maharajji's devotees, said that he would die in 3 days. The devotee was, of course, very upset. But Maharajji said, he's so smart. But what that fool doesn't realize is that it is he who is going to die in 3 days, and he did. Kind of funny. I was on a boat with Maharajji, and he told me to jump in the water. I was afraid and I said, Maharajji, I can't swim, I'll drown. Maharajji pointed to a high bridge and said, if the right time has not come, you would jump from that bridge and not die. As he said that, I felt great faith and jumped in. And it was only up to my waist. Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. I'll also share with you a story of as to how different spiritual teachers approach the same situation differently. For example, there is a student of our spiritual teacher. Her name is Faith Save. She is of the she is of the title of an acharya right now. She told us a very good story. 2017, I think she told a story to us. She said that they were going in a boat. Our spiritual teacher and some of the students were going in a boat, and this person, Faith Save, I think she fell over the board, and she was in the water, and of course she was trying for help, and others probably were trying to help. I don't know exactly, but the teacher was healing her. At that time, the teacher was healing. I think in a maybe some time of short time of healing, and the fear that she had of drowning completely left. There was no fear of drowning. She was actually swimming in the water after that. To me, the story was actually very, very inspiring because it showed that how a great teacher would use an opportunity to really heal somebody. Because in a situation like this, the fear would really express, and perfect opportunity to take it out also. So likewise, if you're in a bad situation of life, use the opportunity to take the energy which expresses out. For example, if fear expresses out, suppose you have to go to a police station, for example, for some reason, right? If a fear is coming out, use a blue triangle. No, use techniques basically. If you're a Hatha yoga practitioner, use appropriate techniques. If you're a pranic healer, appropriate techniques. If you're somebody else, some other school practitioner, pray to your teacher to remove the fear, right? There are other, for example, situations in which you're undergoing a trauma or other difficult emotional circumstances. Use techniques that you have been given by your teacher to remove those energies, because at the time, if you do it in the window of time that you have, about a few minutes of time when the energy is properly expressed out, you can extract maximum stuff from your system and can make a good progress in that area, actually. Be more free in that area in that sense. Let's go forward. There was a peddler who lived in Ramghar. He became very ill, and the worried family took him to a local Baba for help. This Baba said that the man would die very soon, but that he did have some medicine that might save him. The family then also consulted Maharajji, telling him of the first Baba's verdict. Maharajji responded quickly, nonsense. He will live to be in his 80s. That wicked Baba just wants to scare you so he can sell you his medicine. The husband of a sick woman went to Maharajji, and Maharajji made a stick in a certain way and gave it to the man with instructions to put it under his wife's pillow. He did this, and soon she got better. But when they looked for the stick, it was missing. The husband, who was now greedy to have the stick, went to Maharajji and told him the stick was missing. Maharajji said, "You have your wife. What do you want with a stick?" Later, the mother of another man became ill. So the man went to Maharajji and said, "You gave so and so a stick to heal his wife. Will you give me a stick to heal my mother?" Maharajji said, "She was a young girl and I saved her. Your mother is an old woman and she'll die." And she did. My father had a series of operations, and before and after each one, Maharajji visited him. The last time he became ill, however, Maharajji didn't come. We knew that his life would soon be over. Maharajji came after his death. The same thing happened to my mother. When my mother became ill, Maharajji came to Kanpur but didn't visit our house, though he would always visit us when he was in town. She died. 2 days later, Maharajji came to the house and went to the prayer room where a photograph of my mother was kept. Maharajji started weeping like a 5-year-old child, weeping, weeping, weeping. Hmm. By the way, this word is very beautifully written by Maharajji. It's called Ram, you know. And Maharajji was a devotee of Hanuman, right? Hanuman is a Bhakt of Ram. Very interesting, no? After Maharajji's death, something happened that brought me to him. After Maharajji's death, something happened that brought me to him. My young brother-in-law, dying of cancer, was down at the Cancer Research Institute in Bombay, away from us all. The doctors wired us that he would die that very day, that he was in the absolute final stage of cancer. We were all very sad. I went to Junapur, Maharajji's new temple in New Delhi, thinking that if Maharajji is really as great a saint as they say, he could help us. Out of the merit of his own tapasya, austerities, he could help us. So I went and prayed for three things. First, I prayed that my brother in law's life be extended for 2 more months. I wouldn't ask for a cure. In bracket, what is ordained must be, a ravaged body must die, but an extension could be granted. Second, I asked that if he die here, surrounded by his family. And third, I asked that he have a peaceful death. Next, we heard from Bombay that they said that he had a remission and was released from their care. He flew immediately to Delhi to join us. Here, the doctors examined him and declared him fit enough to return to work. Well, this remission lasted for 2 months and 1 day until he got the sick again and died peacefully, surrounded by all of us. Why did he get that one more day? He went to Maharajji's temple on the last day of the 2 months and received a prasad. That prasad saved him. He couldn't die on the same day as receiving the prasad. When it came for my father to die, Maharaji said to him, in quotes, "Ask me for anything." Father said, "I want nothing. I have lived my life. Now I want to die by the Ganges at Kashi in Banaras." Maharaji said to him privately, "You must live one more year. You will die by the Ganges but not at Kashi." 1 year later, at Dargan on the Ganges, where I had a new house, my father said, "You have a house in Dargan, but you don't know how unfortunate it is for you." That was when he visited in July. He died there in November. Hmm. Literally, Ghat of the Ganga. In 1951, my father, the district magistrate, was ill and in great pain. He had a 99-degree temperature for 30 days. 4 days before he died, Maharajji came and brought him 4 roses. To my father, he said, "You'll be okay." To me, he said, The body has to finish. Wow. Although all these incidents concern Maharajji's devotees, his healing energy is extended far beyond them. In the following story about Subramaniam, Dr. Larry Brilliant, a Western physician who was brought to Maharajji by his wife Girija, we catch a glimpse of how Maharajji worked indirectly. In this case, he worked through Subramaniam and the World Health Organization of the United Nations to speed the eradication of smallpox. The first thing he said to us as we walked in and sat down was, Doctor America. Remember the devotee he called Dr. America, right? How much money do you have? I said, Oh Maharaji, I have $500. No, really. How much money do you have? I insisted that this was all that I had. He said, Yes, that's in India, but how much money do you have in America? I thought about it and I confessed to being a bit concerned that this was an appeal from him for money for some temple, and I said, I have only $500 back in America, which was true. Then I hastened to add, but I also have a very big debt from a medical school. I had to borrow a lot of money to go through a medical school, and even though I have $1,000, I owe a lot more than that. He said, What? You have no money? You're a doctor. It sounded exactly like something my mother would say. He looked at me and laughed and laughed. You are no doctor. You're no doctor. You're no doctor. You are no doctor. You are no doctor. You are no. Wow. I didn't understand what he was saying. Then he said, You're going to give vaccinations. You will go to the villages and give vaccinations. You want me to give a shot to someone here? I asked. I didn't understand what he was instructing me to do. Everybody else understood except me. Finally, he looked at me and said, Dr. America, you are no doctor. United Nations Organization doctor. You will work for the United Nations. You are going to go to the villages and give vaccinations. In fact, I had made a very casual inquiry for some acquaintances who worked for WHO, the World Health Organization, but they replied that WHO was not hiring anyone at all. Meanwhile, over the next few weeks, Maharajji was always asking me, Did you get your job? I always said, No, Maharaj, and quickly dropped the subject. One day, Maharajji said to me, Go to WHO, you'll get your job. So I went to WHO offices in New Delhi and saw the man to whom I originally had spoken. He was very friendly but pointed out that WHO had no opening, and in any case, they only hired expert consultants from medical schools and institutions outside India. Then he said, But there is one program, if they could ever do anything, it would be really nice. But it's doubtful they will be able to achieve their goal because it's so difficult. It's a smallpox program. The Indian government right now is adamantly against expanding the WHO program to fight smallpox. I wonder why Indian government would be against it. No idea. They have other problems such as malaria and family planning. Smallpox is not their highest priority. But I'll take you to see the French doctor, Nicole Grasset, who directs that program. We made an appointment to see her, and I returned to the home of two of Maharaj's devotees, the Barmans, and borrowed Barman's suit and brought a terrible tie. I tied my hair to a ponytail and hid it under a white shirt. My costume was bizarre and ill-fitting, and Nicole realized that once that I was just another hippie. She said, I'm sorry, we really don't have a job, but it's awfully nice to meet you. So I went back to Maharajji and he asked again, Did you get your job? I said, No, Maharajji, let's just cut this out. 2 more weeks passed and Maharajji looked at me and said, Go back to WHO. I took the bus, rickshaw trip back to WHO. Once more, I talked to my acquaintance Ned, and this time I filled out a different type of form, typed it a bit more properly, and sent it in and spoke with Nicole on the phone. Of course, there was no job there. The next week, Maharaji asked if I got my job, then asked me to call Nicole. It was getting embarrassing. This time I called her from Vrindavan. Again, she told me that there was no expansion of the smallpox program, no possibility of hiring American doctors, but she thanked me for continuing interest in the work. Sometime later, Maharaji suddenly called me and said, immediately go to WHO. I took a train and went immediately to WHO. When I walked in the door, there was another man there. He said to me, what are you doing here? I gave my usual line, I've come to WHO for the smallpox program. My guru told me I would work for WHO. I went up to Ned's office again and telephoned Nicole. She said there was still no expansion of the smallpox program, but there was something that had happened that day. The chief of the global smallpox program had come from Geneva. She suggested that I come to meet him. I went to meet him, and of course, he was the same man in the doorway whom I had just told I would be working for WHO. And it was his program I was going to work for. He interviewed me and wrote a note for the record. This young man seems to like foreign cultures and probably do very good international work someday. However, he has no experience in public health, no training past internship, and I wish him good luck in the future. We have no job for him. What he said to me was that WHO could not hire me for several reasons. First, I had no public health training. I had never seen a case of smallpox. Second, because of political tensions, the Indian government preferred at that time not to have Americans working in India. Third, they had not yet really geared up for the program for smallpox eradication in India. Smallpox had been eradicated in all but four countries, but the strategy was to work on the other three first and then come to India. That was it. He added that there was a smallpox program in Pakistan, and if that interested me, I had best give it some more thought. I paused and sleepishly said, I'm going to have to ask my guru. I went back to Maharajji. See, Pakistan, right? I went back to Maharajji. When he asked if I got the job, I said no, but there's a possibility job in Pakistan. He yelled back, no. I said India. So I telephoned back to WHO and told Nicole my guru insisted that I work for WHO in India. That must have amused her, but she was polite as usual and thanked me for calling. After 2 months of this, Girja and I were exhausted and frustrated. We decided to take a vacation from it all in Kashmir. As we were leaving the ashram, I called Nicole at WHO and told her our plans. If by any chance a job comes through, I said, please call me in Srinagar. She said, a very strange thing just happened. I suddenly had this inspiration. I don't know, maybe it's a guru or something like that. But can you write? Yes, I said, I'd edited some medical journals. Well, we can't really hire you as a smallpox doctor, but if you're really that determined to work for WHO, maybe I could hire you as an administrative assistant. Look, anything. Maharaj said, I'm going to work for you and I'm going to go to the villages and give injections. He's never been wrong. She changed my application from that of a doctor to that of an administrative assistant and sent a telegram to DA Henderson for the program chief of in Geneva, Switzerland. I'm going to hire brilliant. She suddenly really wanted to hire me and put the application through. Still, WHO had not created a post in our unit. After our vacation in Kashmir, we returned to Kenchi at Maharaji's first smiling question. Did you get your job yet? No, Maharaji, it's really very complicated. Again, he had me to go back to Delhi, which was 10 times now, and I'd gone back and forth like a yo-yo each time, putting on barman suit and the dog tie. When I got to WHO, I found that my application as an administrative assistant had been approved, but that I would still have to pass a security clearance. Every American working for WHO must have one. When I got that piece of paper for a security clearance, I knew that this was the end of the game. There seemed to be no chance in the world that I could get a security clearance. We had been that part of the left wing anti war movement in states. I had been the leader of a radical organization, the Medical Committee from Human Rights. There was absolutely no chance for a security clearance. I came back to Kenchi feeling terrible. I explained all this to Maharajji and said that there may have been a lot of stumbling blocks up until now, but this was the last straw. Maharajji said, "Oh, who is the person who's supposed to give you this job?" I couldn't remember precisely who, but I mentioned that Henderson was the boss. Maharajji pretended to be a real fakir sadhu. He sat up straight and put his blanketed arm up before his face and asked, "How do you spell his name?" I started spelling it. "Wait," he said, and then he began repeating the letters slowly in a deep voice. He peeked out at me through his fingers, which were covering his face, laughing all the time. He continued spelling the name and pretended to go into trance, always peeking at me to be sure I was watching and properly impressed, but giggling as he did so. At the same time, in Geneva, Dr. Henderson was attending a cocktail party at the American Embassy. The American ambassador and the Surgeon General were there. The Surgeon General asked Henderson how the smallpox eradication program was going. "Great," said Henderson. "We have 34 countries cleared and only 4 are left." "Are all the countries helping you?" asked the Surgeon General. "Yes, Russia has given us the vaccine. Sweden's given us a lot of money. All the countries are helping." The Surgeon General asked, "What about America? What are we giving you?" "Well, an expert in getting support from this program, not so much." "What do you need?" Henderson replied, "I don't know how I got into this, and I don't know why we're doing it, but we want to hire this young American doctor who has been living in an ashram in India. We've never done anything like that before, and the kid can't get a security clearance." The Surgeon General of the United States said, "Security clearance? What does he need that for?" Henderson replied, "Every American, in order to work for the US, for the UN, has to have a security clearance." Surgeon General said, "I don't know that. Who gives him the clearance?" "I don't know that. Who gives him the clearance?" Henderson said, "You do." "I do?" "Give me a napkin and tell me what the kid's name is." He took a cocktail napkin and wrote, "Brilliant. Okay, to start work." He gave the napkin to Henderson, who telegraphed WHO in New Delhi that I had been cleared to work. The next morning, Maharaji called us into his office. He was being too nice, laughing and smiling. He had tea and jalebis brought in, and he hugged us. We were rubbing his feet. It was so blissful. Then suddenly Maharaji said, "Okay, time for you to go." We thought he meant to leave the ashram. We stood up and pranamed and then walked out and around the corner. And we just approached the gate to the ashram. The postman came with a telegram from New Delhi. "We have been notified today that you have received a US security clearance. Come immediately to WHO New Delhi to begin work." So I went to WHO and began work as an administrative assistant. During the week, I worked in Delhi, and on the weekends, we came to ashram to be with Maharaj. I remember one darshan in the back at Kenchi where we talked for 3 hours about smallpox. It was the most horrid disease I'd ever seen. He told me everything about it, where it is located in India, where the bad epidemics were, what the seasons were, what the transmission cycle was, what places he would have trouble with, everything about the epidemiology. Epidemiology. He knew much more than I knew. Even after I'd worked with WHO for about 3 months, I asked him, "Will smallpox be eradicated?" I remember his answer because I wrote it down. "Smallpox will be eradicated. This is God's gift to mankind because of the hard work of dedicated medical scientists." Wow, this is remarkable. At the WHO office, I was occasionally assigned to write up the operational plans. Since my native language was English, Maharajji would help to organize the whole plan. because my source of information about conditions in India was, well, so direct, shall we say, and because Maharaj's advice was so good, I began to get more and more responsibility. Still, after about a month of this, I was not feeling that Maharaj's prediction had come true because I still wasn't going to the villages to give vaccinations. There was yet no such program. The project slowly moved to the point where we were about to go into the field. September was about to be the first month. Some of the staff would go into the field, but not me. Of course, since I was an administrative assistant, I was to stay in New Delhi and mind the shop. However, it so happened that two of the Russian doctors who were to be assigned to the area where Maharajji had lived for a long period were held up by Soviet government formalities. There was this blank spot on the map, and there was just nobody except me who could be sent there. I was sent out of the office into the villages. The jeep that Girija and I drove had a big picture of Maharajji on the dashboard. Often, when we went to a civil surgeon's office and told him about the importance of a serious smallpox program, he would say, "Yes, yes, thank you for coming. Now, please leave. I've got so many other problems." Then, because of Indian courtesy, he might walk us out of our jeep and he'd see Maharajji's picture on the dashboard and ask her why we had it there. Oh, I'd say, he's my guru. He's my guru. He told me that to go to work for United Nations. He told me smallpox would be eradicated. He told me this is God's gift to mankind through the hard work of dedicated medical scientists. And then the civil surgeon might say, "Oh, please come back to my office. Take tea. Since smallpox is going to be eradicated, how shall we get organized?" It kept happening like that every time simply because Maharaji said smallpox would be eradicated and because all the Indian officials had heard that anything he said came true. They took our work seriously and put other things aside to help us. Often skeptical WHO or Indian official said to me, "Look, you understand India. You may eradicate smallpox everywhere else, but you know India will never eradicate smallpox. It's just not possible." But when they heard what Maharaji had said, the Indian officials would often completely change their opinions. Soon we were assigned to the areas that were selected because of the negative attitude of the local doctors. We talked about Maharaji's prediction. Some of the officials remembered when the Chinese invaded India in 1962 and Maharaji had said that the Chinese troops would go back to India by themselves. And so these doctors would change their attitudes and motivate their people to do tremendous work. And soon smallpox would be beaten in their area. The effect of this was that although I knew very little about smallpox or the UN system, every time I was sent to a difficult area, through Maharaji's grace, smallpox would disappear. WHO kept sending me to strange and remote places. I thought perhaps it was just in Uttar Pradesh that I had such luck, but in January 1974, they sent me to a remote part of Madhya Pradesh, to a place that just happened to be part of Shahdol district, Amarkantak. Hmm. Maharajji's old sadhu stomping grounds, which at that time was experiencing the worst epidemic in India. Nearly everyone in the district had known Maharajji. And when they learned that he had smallpox, that he had said smallpox would be eradicated, they cooperated and said, despite the earlier skepticism, mounted a tremendous campaign in the remote hills. The epidemic was over. People within WHO began to ask me about Maharajji. Nicole, my boss, really opened up to Maharajji in a beautiful way. First of all, she did think Maharajji and somehow influence. First of all, she did think Maharajji had somehow influenced her to hire me. Second, since she always asked everyone's advice before making difficult decisions, she got in the habit of asking us. And when we go to see Maharaji over the weekends, what he would advise about specific problems in the eradication program. He would send his advice back through us. His answers were full of wisdom on every level, practical as well as spiritual. Many smallpox workers began to respect him. Members of the smallpox staff had a quality about them that was different from any other group. I met in the UN program. They were very inspired. We talked freely about Maharajji as they were all devout individuals. It took only 2 years of intense effort to conquer smallpox in all of India. When we started in 1974, there was 180,000 cases with 30,000 deaths in only 1 year. A total of 400 epidemiologists from 30 different countries and 100,000 Indian workers worked in frenzy of compassion and commitment. Everyone in India had said it could never be done, even many WHO officials. But Maharaj said it could be done and that it was God's gift to mankind. And it was. This is a very inspiring story, by the way. We are 20 minutes plus already. We'll try and close this. To the Supreme God, Divine Father, Divine Mother, thank you for your great blessings. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. To our great spiritual teacher, to all the great spiritual teachers, to all the great gods and goddesses, to all the great, great ones, we very, very humbly thank you for your great blessings. To the great Neem Karoli Baba, and to all his great disciples, we extremely humbly thank you for your great blessings. Thank you for continuing to inspire us, motivate us, empower us, and lead us into greater and greater forms of glory and greatness. We extremely humbly thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Everyone, see you next time. Sorry we extended because the story was too long, but I'm hoping it was a very, very good story for all of you to understand that with the blessing of a guru, anything is possible, even if it's a country. Take care. Bye bye. God bless you.